Happy Easter. Today is April 12th, 2020. I know I've already done a video and stuff like that, but, well, I mean, I've done the way I am because of quite a few different things. Tend to go, what is the term? I don't half-ass anything. So if I have the ability, despite how much pain I'm in, to get certain things done, I'll get it taken care of. Well, today I was able to do the video on Facebook, and then the one that was previously loaded in it, and then now here. My headaches were really bad, but I needed to give myself a haircut, so that's part of it. You know, the hair was just too long, too heavy, and stuff like that, and so yeah. I do miss getting my hair cut, because the waxing thing is just does help. It does, even though, and I think what I did wrong is that I wore my glasses the other day, and I think that kind of hurt my headaches a little bit, and that's why. And so did the whole, like, what I could at this point, but is what it is. So this particular video is going to be in reference to, I was listening to the FISA court thingamabob. I know that is not very lawyer speakish, but technically the term FISA court is legal speak. The rest probably not so much, but it is what it is. And so I was listening to that with the different legal people, the people being interviewed and the interviewers and that. And so it got me thinking about certain things, you know. I mean, it was one of those. I had listened to the Vatican earlier, after the first video that I had, well, I guess technically two videos that I had done. But anyway, one being on Facebook, one on the YouTube thing. And so listen to the Latin and the Greek, and I think there were a couple other languages that a few different portions of the service had and stuff like that. And I took Latin in high school. Ironically, that's one of the things that I did retain when it came to my pedantry on Palm Sunday in 2000. I don't know why, but it is what it is. I guess that's how I figured out words, which probably annoyed some people because it was one of those, they'd tell me to know words better, and it's like, yeah, well, you know, this word means this, and this word means that, so, you know, I mean, but sure, tell me what I don't know. I mean, okay. I mean, I would think that I would know stuff that I'm speaking about. I don't speak about things I don't know. I mean, you know, and if I do, it's one of those, well, I guess this, or I guesstimate that, or hypothetically this, or maybe, you know, and so on and so forth. So it's one of those, like, I mean, I already know I'm dumb. I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math, so it's not like I don't know. So that being said, in reference to the FISA court, and apparently there's like a really high approval rating of investigation stuff. Probably better legal terminology than investigation stuff, but you know. So in that, I was listening, and then Jibber came on. I have, okay, so before I go forward in the purpose of this particular video one, so a few different things in reference to And I do. I call him Teddy Bear. I do. I mean, if I were to meet him, I wouldn't call him unless I was given permission. If I was given permission to call him Teddy Bear in person, that'd be one thing. But, Senator Cruz. And it's Teddy Bear. So, when Senator Cruz, before he became Senator Cruz, actually had come out in the public sector, and that was about the time of the Tea Party thing, and the grassroots campaign and that sort of stuff. I just realized that's politics. It's a little late to figure that out because it's a couple whatever ago. Anyway, so when he had come out and announced, and then there were a bunch of various different discussions and talks going on, it was one of those. And I know that there are people who have certain similar aspects where something happens, there's a connection that is felt, and it moves you to go one way or another and stuff like that. When when Senator, or who became Senator Cruz, had started doing the campaign stuff and talking with people and all that sort of stuff, it was one of those, ooh. And it wasn't, and yes, partially it was, but it was also in regards to the ooh, and it wasn't until recently that I found out that, and I had done some research and stuff, that he had been around the vicinity when it came to the 9/11 attacks. And so in that, it wasn't just that sort of stuff as far as that sort of feeling. It was one of those, apparently the neighbors in 736 are putting something up on their wall or whatever. Anyway, so in that reference, with seeing him in random news articles here and there, it was one of those, again, yes. But in other ways, it was, what are the words? Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I know that's probably not like the best terminology in words, but it was one of those, oh, he is definitely a go-getter. He definitely, but then at the same time, in reference to the feelings and not realizing until recently, as far as the 9/11 aspect in 2001, it was one of those, oh, he was, and apparently so, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to just be like, let's go do this, let's go do, like, I'm sure very similar to certain regards to when he was running for senator, but in a more unique sort of way, in regards to justice, this, and not say that other, and I'm not being rude when I say this towards other senators or Congress or anything like that, not at all. Just one of those, like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna change the world. Just, oh. Yes, you will. Oh, it's so cute. But in reference to that, it was one of those, because of what I essentially saw in that regard, it was one of those, how do I put it? So I'll give a metaphor to be able to explain that. Military guys and law enforcement guys and medical personnel and fire department guys, when they go through training initially, they're like, I'm going to do this, and some of them, not all of them, I get it, but there's a large, I'm going to do this, I'm going to serve my country, I'm going to grrr, and stuff like that. Not necessarily like that, but in their own, sort of way, because grrr. And but when it comes to Tibet, I would, if I got to meet him in person, I would, unless given permission, yes, Senator Cruz, yes, I would. I have a child's mind, I don't deny that. And so, did you beat you with your puppy? Yes, you sugar rock. Again, I wouldn't want to piss him off because I would guesstimate in a courtroom just vicious. I mean, I'm sure a professional, but if he's like the prosecutor, that's part of, in reference to when seeing him initially run, I was like, oh, he gonna. Do not get in his way. He's so cute, but raw. And I know that's not the best in words, but that's what I got. And so, whereas you got the other guys who have kind of been in the politics stuff, apparently is what it's called. With, you've got, senators and congressmen who have been involved with that sort of stuff, all the ones just, yes, and very, very prim and proper, and vicious, don't get me wrong, can be absolutely vicious and raw, but very demure, but, and that's probably not the correct word for the male ones, but, that sort of like, I got gestures. I don't have the words. But in that, it was one of those. Okay, yeah, no. He'll be able to do the refined demure stuff. But when it's gonna be time, he's gonna be raw. Gonna be so raw. Gonna be so raw. You get him. You go raw. Well, in reference to that, and I'm gonna bring it back around. If you've watched prior videos, you see a pattern in certain regards where is this going? And then when it comes all the way around, I was like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense. And let me go. I'm sure there might be some people, well, let me rewind that. Okay, I got that. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe there is. I don't know. But in reference to the FOIA FISA thing, where a large percentage of applications are put through and stuff like that, and the different investigations and the like. So if I were to pick, because I think it was a CIA guy who had said something about 3 individual major groups involved in something about President Trump's investigation. It was one of those, well, let me go along the lines of the blind spot thing. Which, yes, I still have to continue with those videos and stuff like that. But if I were to pick like 3 major groups as an individual sect, and not in a and not saying like there wouldn't be like the spider web out type thing, but like 3 individual main points, I would guesstimate one would be my ex-in-laws, like specifically my ex-sisters-in-law, and Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, as well as Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen. And in that regard, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, because of her perpetuating with, in regards of my now dead ex-husband, her dead brother, but also having already known about the stolen valor aspect, if she had contacted the artist that she was so enthralled to go to a presentation sort of thing for his artwork and stuff like that, and that had one of the pictures that she had sent to him, despite the fact that the Chief Warrant Officer 3 at the funeral had said, yeah, no, like, do you know about this? And then had to stop. I had to stop that whole thing because I knew how Susie Marie Nichols Lopez and Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen were going to. They already started, because as soon as the Chief Warrant Officer 3 put the poster on the table, they both started like leaning across that conference table. And it was one of those, in my thoughts, the only, and in prior references, the only visualization for those who have read the first 2 books, the FSL books, or Finding a Silver Lining and Finding the Silver Lining, is what happened at McDonald's during my son's first birthday party when I was pregnant. And I was like, no, you are not going to do that. You are not going, I'm not going to allow it. I'm not. And despite the fact that Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen was not at that birthday party, she supported Susie Marie Nichols Lopez's response. And with the fact that Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen had already thought it was funny that she had pulled, a revolver on 2 different males at that point for stuff that, she had essentially started. It was one of those, I don't know, I'm not going to allow that. I will stop that right here. And there are prior videos that you can reference to for that. And while they did not have firearms on them, they would have, if I had allowed that to continue on, they would have gone and assaulted that Chief Warrant Officer 3, and then I would have, well, we were in a funeral home, so at least there's that. In a hypothetical situation, I'd have been quick. And while the Chief Warrant Officer 3 might have had a couple of scratches, that would be all that Chief Warrant Officer 3 would have had to deal with. And again, we were in a funeral home, so then, there would have been those to be taken care of. No problem right then and there on the spot. And it's not like their brother, the living one, Tony, would have stopped that. And David, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen's husband, would have stopped that. Wouldn't. Nope, not at all. That being said, that would be my guesstimation of 1 point, because in reference to that, when it comes to what happened, not just in regards of the dress blues and the fruit salad and all that, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez wound up speaking with the San Antonio Express News. And while obviously I did as well, I mean, there were certain inaccuracies in certain points of that particular situation, mainly the Cactus Jack issue, or Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., which we'll get to that one. But that being said, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, if she had sent the Dress Blues picture after she had already, isn't that funny, Blues Clues? It's completely sidetracked, sorry. Just one of those dress blues. And so, in that regard, and I mix magenta in my hair to make my red, but not always. But anyway, focus. In that regard, if she had sent those dress blues pictures to the artist who did military artwork portraits of fallen soldiers, I don't see that going well with that. And so, just say, and so, and then in turn also Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen. Now, with what happened with my daughter at Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District, specifically McCoy Elementary School, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez had been the one who said, well, if it was James that had the problem, we would do something to help, but because, you know, it's your daughter, Lydia, and it's like, yeah, but I don't know, well, James carries on the family name, and it's like, you don't, your brother technically carries on, you know, the living one, he cares. Well, he's not going to have children, so that doesn't matter, and it's like, but it does. You're completely discrediting your living brother while giving credit that your dead brother didn't earn. And you're upset with me, as well as many other individuals who are letting you know, no, your dead brother, spiritual husband, was a lying piece of trash. But you are emanating him quite well. You should probably change that up, though. No, you don't want to? You want to continue? Okay, well, that's your choice. That is your choice. And in that regard, the aspects of Susie Marie Nichols Lopez and how my daughter was treated in comparison to my son, it was one of those, just because you want to continue on where the males are more important, and what are you teaching your daughters? You know, I mean, Brianna Marie already has enough that she's dealing with, and if you continue that pattern, you're only going to teach her that that is considered acceptable, and it's not. The way that sort of treatment goes, it's not acceptable. Same thing when it comes to Marissa Marie. You're teaching her that that's considered acceptable, and it's not acceptable for that sort of, but they're your children, whatever. And then you're teaching your youngest, Joseph, at that time, that he could have, and no, that machismo is not considered acceptable. Not at all. And so having her make that choice, as well as Grandma Nichols support that, and the only way I could get anyone from that side of the family to assist me is if I drove all the way out to them. And then, you know, instead of them just, you know, picking up stuff and doing like what needed to be done, and genuinely just caring. And it was one of those, all right, well, you know, at some point in time, you're going to deal with those consequences. And so when I made the decision to say, you know what, done. No, you are not blood relations to me. You might be blood relations to my son and my daughter, but I don't owe you anything. And I have gone above and beyond in so many different ways in attempts to get my children to still have certain aspects, and I was hoping in a more positive way. But since you're going to be as destructive as you are, I'm not that type of person. You're not going to drag me into your garbage. No, and I've got enough to take care of when it comes to my son and my daughter. Especially after what happened with the Fort Worth Zoo, it was like, no, done, over. It's over. Not gonna have anything. Like, I gave them multiple warnings as far as Grandma Nichols, but especially Susie Marie Nichols Lopez. And there was a breaking point, and it was just, I'm done. It's over. Well, that was obviously after having gone scuba diving and after having, spent time with Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen. And so if Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen thought that she could like finagle her way back in, it's like, no, you made your comments at my house about how you were upset that your dead brother's pictures were not in my bedroom. I'm not interested in that. Like, you knew that we were done before he went like officially back into the army. The fact that you want me to continue on, that's in that regard, no. It was over before he went back in, and you were as well told by the Chief Warrant Officer 3 that he stole valor. So I warned her, not just in regards to the aspects of going up the chain of command and what I had to do in reference to the military service, the memorial service, and stuff like that, meaning the military memorial service, but the military funeral in Fort Worth with, why did he get a Bronze Star if he was denied a Purple Heart? Just throw that out there. And so, with the way Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen chose to be, it was one of those, I don't want to have anything to do with you at all. There is nothing that is worthwhile at all. And no offense to your children, Sandra Marie and Ariel Marie. Ariel Marie seems to be the only one that might have a chance to have a good head on her shoulders, where Sandra Marie, there's no hope for that. There's absolutely nothing. She is absolutely very much your daughter. And it is up to her whether or not she chooses another path, but I doubt it. I doubt it. And so, but in that regard, I also see the ability for Ariel Marie to have that torn feeling like, well, it's my mom, but she's being like a whole bunch of expletives. And so it's one of those, obviously each individual has their own individual choices to make, how they want to do certain things. And if Ariel chose to go down the path along with Sandra Marie, notice how like all of them have the same middle name of Marie. Anyway, so in that regard, I could see that, especially since when the final aspects in regards to my daughter and the military civilian health care insurance being like, no, we have to drop her from that. And I did ask if, my daughter had been put under my now dead ex-husband, like if I had done a separate plan, and they were like, no, because she's already labeled as high risk. I was like, oh. So that, I looked at every possible way. And so when talking with the CPS workers before finalizing the signing of the paperwork for the first set of paperwork, I was told by the CPS workers, the blonde female who was with Luis Ruiz, I think it was his name, for CPS, Child Protective Services. And I called Child Protective Services on myself in not regards to have myself investigated, but I had nothing to hide, so it was one of those, that's fine if you want to look at things. But in attempts to make sure my daughter got the help that she needed, I did that twice on my own. And then another time before getting to the point where it's like, okay, well, the insurance is saying this. I've tried to get the CPS workers to say my daughter needs to be in that particular treatment facility. So, all right, fine, I have to go through with the CPS paperwork. I have no choice. Literally, because that was the only way to keep my daughter safe, my son safe, and then me be able to afford to take care of my son as well as myself. And so, and yes, I know that I said myself at the last portion because, of course, with everything going on, it was one of those, my children had always been far more important. Not saying that I wasn't important in my mind, it was just more of those, my children needed to be taken care of. They were minors in certain realistic aspects because of the head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. Yes, there are certain things that you could hypothetically say in regards to the mentality aspect of that. However, nonetheless, it does go back to that my son and my daughter were always important. And so I had to do whatever was needing to be done to make sure that they were squared away as best as possible, while knowing that I love them and care and all that, and love them, and at that time still care about them now, that sort of stuff. So it was just one of those. I needed to make sure. And when the blonde female had said, well, why don't you call or reach out to your ex-in-laws, just, because they had asked originally about my biological family. Like, no. No. Not at all. Mike, possibly. Not Anna. Not Patricia. No. Zach, her husband. Not Patricia. Not Patricia at all. No. So, in that regard, well, why don't you contact your ex-in-laws? I don't really want to. I refuse to contact my ex-mother-in-law because she's older. She's got enough that she's got to deal with in certain regards. I absolutely refuse when it comes to Susie Marie Nichols Lopez with the way she does stuff. Absolutely not. And so then and when it came to Tony, the older brother, the oldest brother, that obviously and still living, it was one of those, he is dealing with enough when it comes to his wife and her children and his life and what he's doing. And it wasn't in any offense towards him, but also I did know that because my daughter looks very much more like my dead ex-husband, it was one of those, well, I don't know how well he would handle certain aspects. And not in a negative way, in a respectful way. And so, and then that would mean automatically he would have to deal with Susie Marie Nichols Lopez in his life and and that would not have gone well. that would not have, it does not at all. That's why he lived in Oklahoma instead of staying in the state of Texas. Just throwing that out there. And one of the many reasons. And so he and I were very much here when it came to, I'll live in Carrollton. Close enough that I can drive there and then drive back to my house. He took it a little extra further, where it's like, you can't, and unless they had to they weren't going to go over to my house. And so he took it a little extra further, where it's like, you got to cross over state lines. Hypothetically, he did that. Hypothetically, as a portion. But nonetheless, it was one of those, yeah, he was not going to, and then, that wouldn't have gone well at all. No. No, because then that also would have meant that he would have to not only deal with Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, but then all of her children and all of her grandchildren, and that wouldn't have gone well. that would not have gone well at all whatsoever. And so my only option at that point was Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen. I was like, well, Lydia would be able to have the benefits of military stuff, and she'd get along with David, and then there's Mary Evangelina. And so, because the CPS workers were like, you have to at least try one person. Yeah, all right then. I have to. I absolutely have no. We're not giving you a choice. We're giving you the choice of who you contact, but you have to at least make one attempt. Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen it is, because at least David attempts to like have some balancing aspect to her, whatever that is. And just, all right, so in the FISA aspect, I could very much see, because of, I was told what to write. I was told as far as make sure you let them know that, you know, and I was asked, would you be willing to, you know, have more contact with them in what, and I had to tell them that they were in Georgia. And I was like, yeah, I mean, Georgia's a nice state. I do like Georgia. I could go out there. Yeah, there's no right close to the ocean. I can go Florida, go swimming, go scuba diving, and get James and all that sort of stuff. That another aspect is to looking at Florida, but not just that. And so, yeah, I could go to Florida. I could go to that region, no problem. I could go to Georgia. I could go to Georgia. Yeah, you know, not too close to the ocean, but close enough that, you know, don't have to worry about certain aspects of other than, yeah, you know, I could do that. I could, you know, it's a nice area. Pretty plant life. I like the accent. I have a thing. I'm not saying, you know, there are different accents below the Mason-Dixon line. There are different accents. And, you know, I mean, I could chill in Georgia. I could do that. I could do that. And, you know, yeah, I mean, I'd have to be closer to, I mean, the way I look, I've been living in the state of Texas, and so I could make that, you know, I could make that exception, you know, closer to the ocean, you know, and so, but, you know, I was told, you know, make sure you let them know about the different payments, and I was like, oh, that's right, I get a stipend in certain regards from the government for this, and for, like, you know, the VA aspects, as well as, you know, and then there's the Social Security aspect. Okay, yeah, well, you know, since Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen is the way she is, maybe you're right, that might be a point that she might consider and stuff like that. So in the reference of the FISA aspects, there's that. And so if Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen did the same sort of stuff that she did when it came to her dead brother's aspect and not, you know, paying attention to like the important details, I could see her and Susie Marie Nichols Lopez going and, oh, we'll get her in trouble and we'll have her investigated for that sort of stuff. And I could completely see that. And then the additional fact of, you know, Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr. having supposedly, which apparently you don't go to Lackland Air Force Base for officer school, and that's, you know, David in that regard. There's that as a central point. And then since Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen had very much told me that her and David had been in the swinger community when I first met them, you know, it was one of those, okay, you know. And then Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, she had told me back at the time when at David's graduation, during that time, that couple of days or week or whatever it was, that she had, if she got into an issue with someone, she had fun outing people. And I was one of those, but I don't understand, why would you out them? And then she explained some garbage, and I was like, you sound like a high schooler or like middle schooler. I mean, realistically, where I come from, you actually sound like, you know, an elementary schooler, because, like, by the time middle school comes around, you know to keep your mouth shut. Where I grew up going to, by the time you, well, not even middle school in certain regards, by the time you hit about 4th or 5th grade in elementary school, you know, you best keep your mouth shut unless it's a major thing. You don't just drop a dime on somebody for nothing. It better be something major, and you don't want to get that label. And so, you know, there's that aspect, and which
quick little side note.
There was a female that I had known, well, not known, I had spoken with her on the phone, and it was an ex-boyfriend now, but then boyfriend, Patrick Kennedy, and I had called her to ask her a question about something as well as give her a warning. And she was like, I don't want to speak with you because you're outing people. I'm like, what do you mean I'm outing people? And she was like, you're outing people and you're telling, and it's like, now in 2020, you could say that I've done some outing. Not back then in 2011. Not back then at all. No. No. The only people I technically outed were the people who were involved in what occurred to my daughter and my son. And that was it. And that's not outing because that's what they did themselves, and they were probably complaining about it in their own lives at the same time, so it really wasn't outing in that regard. But I didn't get to explain that to her, and it was one of those, well, alright, fine.
I can only do so much to try to explain things. Alright then.
Hold them down. Stay safe. But, so that would be one point of, spider webbing, essentially. And then, in turn, because they, as in my ex-in-laws, they got along well with Cactus Jack or Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. And they got along with him in the same sort of way when their dead brother was alive, sort of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I could see that sort of connection point of them, kind of going along together. And obviously my biological mother and my biological sister as a different connection point, but ironically having Cactus Jack as a central tying point or a tethering aspect. And my ex-in-laws, just like my biological family, preferred Cactus Jack or Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. similarly to the way they preferred my now dead ex-husband when he was alive instead of me. And I was like, all right, well, I could see that. I could see, because I did send the books to my biological family. Now, they obviously probably had no idea that I had sent the books to many individuals well before them. And so because of knowing how Anna, my biological mother, especially how she was, I could see her going over to my biological sister's place and crying the way she probably did at Lackland Air Force Base when she was hypothetically picked up by the MPs there, or SPs there. And so, and then the fact that my biological family lied to Zach, and I would guesstimate, by the time the engagement occurred, they had met Zach's family. Never once acknowledged my existence, ever. like literally the first time Zach found out that I existed, not only was that because of the meeting at Starbucks, but I guesstimate by his response when we first met, he probably thought Patricia meant sister as in one of the sorority sister things, instead of like a biological way, sort of, raised together as children aspect. And so I could very much, see Anna, mainly Anna, more so than Mike. Because I could see Mike reading through this stuff and being like, that's not what, I understood that at that time, but I didn't know about that. And then seeing certain things, like in regards to when he was locked out of the house because Anna and Patricia went to the college to look at stuff. And if he remembered, where I literally jumped the fence and then carried him over to the fence because he had to jump it to get in there because of the lock, picking him up to go over the fence to get to the car because of the late stage diabetes stuff, and getting him to the van to get him and stuff. I could see him being like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This doesn't, like, this makes sense, that doesn't, and then certain issues, and then Anna crying, and then, no, I want answers. Like, no. And then flipping from the aspects of, you know, the husband aspect to, like, what do you mean this? And, you know, if he didn't know, because he wasn't on social media at the time, like, all the way up until the last time I spoke with them, he had not been on social media. So he would have never seen the pictures of when I landed at the bottom of the ocean and in different locations, you know, first the Cozumel area, then the Boca Raton area, and then at the Vandenberg. And he's a former merchant marine. And so I could see where he would, you know, read that portion and be like, whoa, what? What did you know she did that? Did you know that she did that? And then Anna and Patricia being like, oh yeah, we saw the pictures, here they are. And then he'd be like, she needs to, she's alive? What do you mean she's alive? You know, because he was a former merchant marine, so he would know how big the Vandenberg is, where, you know, I had no idea. You know, I mean, I was in certain depths of the ocean when going to the beach as a camper, so, you know, whatever. I didn't have a depth gauge back then, so I don't know how deep it was past the buoys. I have no idea. I didn't have a measurement stick or a tape measure to be like, all right, so now that I'm out here at the buoys on the line, and, you know, at the little netting area, you know, past the other portion, because I'm not talking about the first portion. I'm talking about, it's probably a little deeper in the ocean there, but nonetheless, I didn't take a tape measure with me. All right, you know, I'm standing on top here. Let me hold this here and just go swimming. I didn't do that. It was just, I'm gonna go swimming. What's the big deal? It's just, you know, it's just rocking on the time. Let me try to balance. You know, whatever. And so, you know, I can see Anna and Patricia running over to Zach's family, and then because Anna was involved with the Red Hat Society, oh, where? And then, you know, they'd be like, wait, your daughter went where? Your daughter did, wait, we were under the impression that Patricia was the only one you had. And that, you know, that being a society, I don't know, I kind of have a feeling that you don't lie to the society. That's a bad idea. And I mean, just saying. And then, you know, and then on top of the fact of the able to be proven aspect of the wedding, when it comes to my biological sister to Zach, and, you know, their family being like, oh, wait, your daughter wrote a bunch of books? The one that you didn't tell us about that you had? And then if Anna and Patricia were like, well, we're going to do this, and, you know, open up a different FISA aspect, and then that sort of aspect. And then the third point, essentially, being in regards to Renee, or Matrix Renee, and Jason, along with the DFW location of Club Femme in specific.
Because Matrix Renee, despite the fact that she was a professional dominatrix, I was not.
And she, you know, if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. I you know, but she could not understand that I was not in competition with her. Now, she apparently thought that I was, and it was like, but I'm not a professional dominatrix. Like, your competition are the other professional dominatrix. Or dominatrix I, or dominatri, or however that multiple aspect is. You know, because so if I were to be in a relationship with, it's one in comparison to like your actual competition, you know, in that business sort of way, and then the fact that she had, I warned her taking the name Premier was a really bad idea. I warned her that was a really bad idea. She didn't want to listen to me. I was like, all right, well, you know, that's your choice. You're, and you know, Philly or Philip Armstead, he was the one who wanted, oh, we could be a power couple. The other one was, ironically, Patrick Kennedy. He wanted to be a power couple just like Philip. And it was like, no. First and foremost, why? Because Patrick kept trying to push me into the professional aspect, and it was like, no, I'm not that type of a person. And then later, shortly before the end of that relationship, is when I found out that he essentially had done that with Ms. Jules. And it was one of those, and then he wondered why she like left him, and I was like, well, that makes sense. But in that regard, it's one of those, I could see where Patrick Kennedy and Philip Armstead, as well as Matrice Renee and Jason, or as he went by on FetLife, Renee's bitch, all of them with certain, not all of the female dominatrixes in Club Femme, but the ones professional that were involved with Matrice Renee and Jason. And I could even see in certain regards, and again, going back to that warning to Matrice Renee, there were female dominatrixes in the DFW Club Femme who had been involved with being a professional dominatrix before she had chosen to use the name Premier Dominatrix. And it was one of those, I don't know. I mean,
That's just, it seems like a really bad idea.
and despite the fact that she continuously told me that she thought that I was competition, and then me having to, like, no, I'm not your competition. I'm not at all. Like, I'm not, again, like, the professional ones, those are your competition. I'm not into that. Like, I mean, unless you want to, like, unless you were to be into the, like, interrogation thing, I mean, not that I've been able to get that sort of job, but, like, that's, again, I explained it to her. That was the only way I could be a professional dominatrix. If I was able to work at a black site, have no holds bar, get my tools, what answers you need? Okay, I got you. I'll ask those questions. Anything else? Any other question? All right. Get my case, you know, tools. All right. At that time, it was a oversized keyboard case with multiple extra pockets, a roll-out bag that had individual pockets sort of for my CDO thing that JP did. That was awesome. Made it and all that. And that in itself, that just the bag alone was like, I think the bag alone was like 5-10 pounds, and that didn't include having all my tools in it. Putting my tools in it, it was probably about the weight of a scuba tank. Irony on how it rolled up. And then and then my, what was it? I had a leather case too, and I'd carry all of them at the same time. And then I also had my big first aid kit. Like, I had a professional grade, like medical EMS type of first aid kit. And then I had another tool bag, and I'd carry them all at the same time. And my corset, and whatever the bottom was, whether it was a tutu, whether it was a skirt, it didn't matter. It was what it was. And then stiletto high heels, sometimes with a platform, sometimes not. And just, yeah, just, what questions do you need me to ask today? Sure. I'll have fun. See why you shouldn't be a terrorist? You see all these bags that I got? I got some questions for you. I'm going to start with the small bag first. Go to the little fairy set. Now, don't let the fact that this is an emergency medical kit fool you. There's some medical supplies in here that I can utilize for questions. But, I tried explaining that to Renee, and she didn't want to, accept that as reality. She was like, no, you're a competent. No, because you have, you are another human being, just like I am, and so I have feelings, and I know that I would get attached to, the clientele. That is the only way I could be a professional dominatrix. Because I know myself, I could not have an emotional attachment with the exception of what answers do I need to get from my guys. And my emotional attachment being to my guys, not to the perpetrator that I'd be interrogating at all. I will have to, despite this being a medical care kit, it's not for your medical care. The actual medical guys have the actual medical stuff to help you. This is, now if needed when I was playing, yes. But in regards to if I was a professional dominatrix, would not be for that first aid kit. Be like, so, this particular, don't let this fool you. No. Just because it looks like medical gauze, because it is, I can do some stuff with that. Don't let this tourniquet fool you. I can do a lot with that too. If you don't want to find out, do you want to answer the questions or do you want me to get started? I can get started, but once I get started, I want the truth and nothing but the truth. Ready? And in a similar explanation like that, Renee was like, no. You're a competition for my business. And it's like, no, not at all. Not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. Now, while I do admit, going in reference to the aspects, because Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr., my now ex-boyfriend, the one at the Cowboys dance hall situation, he had said that he had family in Houston who were in the oil business and stuff like that, and his aunt in Houston had been the one that had gotten him, squared away with joining the Air Force as an officer. And the reason why I bring that portion up as an additional aspect is because Renee said that her teacher and her mentor was in Houston for being a professional dominatrix. And I was like, okay. I don't know. And I was recently told in the past, technically 2-3 months ago, when I saw an individual that apparently Club Femme was started in Houston. I was informed by someone that I spoke with on Skype that, and that was back in 2012, that according to the female I spoke with on Skype, that it was started in the UK and specifically in Britain. I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't, at this point, I don't know. But that's what I was told, at least. And so I could see, because I did send in a IRS form to the IRS in reference to what Renee had told me. I could see her and a bunch of the females in Club Femme going and contacting the FOIA court type thing because of the fact that, I repeatedly, and that's the irony of things, is that Matrice Renee kept trying to tell me that I was competition to her, and yet every time she tried to get me to do her stuff with her, I told her no, because no, And I already listed some of the reasons, but also she was like, oh, well, the cash will be under the table. You don't have to worry about paying taxes. I have this really weird thing. I never want to be audited. Like, when I grew up in New Jersey, I think it was during the time when I was sick in 5th grade, there was the news stuff. And I was like, oof, no, I do not want to go through what Enron is going through. Like, I don't know if I'll ever have a business like that, but no, 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 no. I don't think so. I don't ever want to have to go through something like that. I don't ever want to owe the IRS money. Nope.
Nope, 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 nope. Not with what I'm seeing on the news. Absolutely not.
No, I do not want to ever be audited. No, thank you. I will. I don't ever want to I don't ever want to owe taxes. No, no, no. That's what they do. No, thank you. Not at all. No, 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 no. And so that was when I had monocytosine bronchitis, Lyme's disease, and the flu at the same time. And should have been hospitalized, but instead Anna was like, no, Mike can go to college and become an RN and then just do it out of the house. And I was like, I think that's illegal. I think it's illegal to take medical supplies from the hospital to treat your child at the house. I think that's illegal, but if not, probably should be. Just gonna throw that out there. But, Anna preferred not to have the hospital bills. I'm like, whatever. So those would be my 3 points that I would guesstimate, because with the tethering of Cactus Jack, or Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., because of the aspect in regards to his connection with my biological family, his connection with my ex-in-laws, and then because he already obviously knew about the modeling and the LGBTQP swinger BDSM community, and he had already met people in the pagan community as well. He had gone to Candlelight Coffee House, or wait, no, it wasn't at Candlelight Coffee House at the time. It was at the Quarry, whatever that restaurant was, when P&O was there, Pagan Night Out. And he had recognized some people from his gaming stuff. And so it was one of those, well, that would be the connection points that I would guesstimate if there was ever a FOIA or FISA, investigation on me. It was like, I knew that in regards to my Medal of Honor art project, I knew that at some point in time, it would be figured out that I was doing my Medal of Honor art project. Whether it was during my initial research and looking at all that stuff, or when I went to McClendon's on Pearl Street in Tacoma to be like, here, this is what I want done, just encase it in glass, unfinished wood, so that way you can see it on both sides. Essentially, apparently like a big lithograph. Now that I think about it, I think that's the term. Whatever, Disney did, Walt Disney or whatever, well, whatever his real name was. But anyway, that sort of stuff. And, I figured if I hadn't already been, not that I can camel, I had already spoken with different individuals. At each of the cemeteries in Washington State, I spoke with the caretakers if there was an office to go to. And so, if originally I wasn't, red flagged and like, who's researching where undocumented recipients are buried? Why are you doing that by, techie stuff? Then the different locations being like, yeah, hi. She's doing this. And then, if there wasn't already an investigation starting from the point of the San Antonio Express News article, because of Cactus Jack or Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., because if the news reporter or the newspaper itself recognized the name, or whenever they finished their article and then did, or editor or whatever it is, and ping on that, and then, oh wait, what, 151, what, and all that sort of stuff, then going into an investigation aspect, and then because of my now dead ex-husband, that whole thing with the different aspects of that being like, well, there's the central point right there, and which way does the spider web out, and all these different things, and so on and so forth. And so by the time of starting the Medal of Honor art project and doing the different stuff to be respectful and all that, by the time of getting to either the McClendons or and that guy being former Navy, and him being like, Navy at the Pentagon? Yeah. She's doing this. What am I supposed to do with these? Like, she's gonna pay for them, but like, what do we do? And then, after I had already started my Medal of Honor art project, I think by the time I had already dropped off the first set of Medal of Honor artwork pieces, that was when I had, oh, okay, well, let me go and actually do the business thing, and here I'll publish, because I started the Medal of Honor art project stuff, despite the fact I was writing. I hadn't actually published anything by the time I had gotten to the point of, here you go, here, can you do this? I can't do the framing thing, but could you do it? Cool. Bad with numbers, so bad with numbers. And I did tell Tom at the McClendon's about my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000 and that whole thing, and so, oh my God, okay, that's what you're gonna do? Yeah, why not? Being respectful. So, in regards to the FOIA FISA thing, I would guesstimate at some point, the government figured out, oh, we don't have to worry about her. She don't camo anywhere she goes. We just gotta see what's trailing around behind. Like, what's going on in that aspect? What are they doing?
And so if those individuals had done the different FOIA aspects
of that, I said I never wanted to be audited. I never want to go through that. And that included any other type of investigation. Now I have to any type of audit, as in I don't want to be audited, period, because from what I saw as far as the Enron stuff, they went into every single aspect of those guys' life. It was like, I don't think so. I don't want that at all. No, I don't want to deal with that. Thanks, but no thanks. I'll just be good. I don't want to get in trouble with, I don't want to go to prison, I don't want to go to jail, I don't want none of that, like, all of what is involved with that, thank you, but no thank you. I do not want to, nope. Nope. And then the fact that I went in the military and was looking at that, it's like, I gotta keep my stuff clean because, with supply and logistics, in order to do that job, I want to make sure my clearance is like the tippity, no, nothing, all the way up, no problem, I can be stationed anywhere, okie dokie, you gotta go over here, okie dokie. And then not have to worry about, certain things, and just, go. So, I could see how those individuals, if they had submitted their FOIA requests, those individual groups, I would guesstimate they did not realize that they themselves would be put under investigation immediately.
I would guesstimate that if they didn't know that, they would
immediately be investigated. Then I would also guesstimate that they also wouldn't have an idea of how long certain government stuff goes. People in the military, especially military, like they are accustomed to the term hurry up and wait. And so all of those individual groups that I brought up in reference to my ex-in-laws and my biological mother and biological sister, far more than my biological father, Mike, and then, you know, the BDSM, LGBTQP, swinger, and pagan, essentially all in one sort of aspect, I would guesstimate with those, not all of them not having military backgrounds, but the ones that didn't have any military backgrounds or law enforcement, they move quicker usually because they have to, because of sensitive material, time-sensitive stuff. Not being accustomed to, if they were accustomed to the law enforcement aspect, if at all, but not in reference to the military and how the military hurry up and wait sort of thing, and those who are military or have been in the military, they very much know, understand, and comprehend hurry up and wait sort of thing. The civilians I could see being very, no, I want it now, I want it now, I want it now, and instead, you know, being met with, no, you have to wait until, you know, the investigation and da-da-da, and then them being arrogant enough to be like, well, if you're not going to do it, we'll just go and do it, and then themselves get in trouble after already starting that process.
And then, in turn, because of contacting the FOIA and FISA courts and whatever other ones,
I could see those civilians especially being like, oh, you'll just believe, you know, because they look normal in comparison to me, you know, like I have the haircut, the hair color, the tattoos, the head injury, like all that sort of stuff, and where, you know, like I was repeatedly told when it comes to like my ex-in-laws, they look normal compared to me. When it comes to those, you know, as far as BDSM, LGBTQP swingers, especially in the Club Femme aspect, when it came to the professional dominatrixes, they look normal compared to me. They're the, you know, I cannot recall how many times Matrice Renee had brought up, well, you know, I just look better and I just look more normal than you do. You know, males prefer, men, as she, you know, they like long hair. They don't like your hair. That's why, you know, da da da. They don't like, you know, tattoos and stuff like that on females. You just, or girls or women. You know, you look the way you do, and yet she viewed me as competition. The irony of that. And then, you know, then in reference to my biological family, that whole thing being like, oh, well, you know, you didn't go to college and look at the way you look and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, Patricia looks so normal and so pretty and blah, 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 and you're you. And so I could very much see where they would be all arrogant enough to be like, oh, we look so normal and look at her. I mean, like I dealt with in person.
And so if they had hypothetically, while in the middle of a FOIA and FISA like thing or whatever other investigations that they attempted to do
or get started, and then them being impatient and not being, and then causing problems for my Medal of Honor art project. I mean, I could see that being investigated as far as my Medal of Honor art project in regards to, are you being respectful, young lady? Of course. Medal of Honor, guys. They probably would have seen that probably at the first Medal of Honor recipient I went to. They probably would have seen, whichever one that was, they probably would have seen me salute if there was an American flag in the vicinity. Most likely they'd have seen me do that. They probably would have seen me do a small ritual, but not in full of the entire aspect. Then they would have seen me to be respectful to the cemetery and stuff. Then they'd see me, if there was a flag, salute the flag, and then while doing other stuff, they wouldn't see me doing my ritual aspect, but they'd see me being respectful. Then they'd see me find the Medal of Honor recipient marker, and then most likely see me salute that guy, and just, oh yeah, just so respectful. Ooh. But then, in turn, that not being an issue, but then the cherubim ones being an issue. Whichever group they fell into that regard.
And so,
In that,
because, Ted Bear.
Being a senator in the state of Texas, he probably knows what that 151 thing is. And if he didn't know what the 151 thing is, he probably found out. And, but he probably knows what the fiesta thing is. Probably does. Probably knew what the fiesta thingamabob is in San Antonio. Whereas I didn't. Only more recently have I figured out some historical stuff through research. And so, yeah. 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 And then it's kind of, as a completely different side note in the regards of my haircut, my hair color, especially with the waxing, you could almost make a joke, the buoys out in the East Coast area of the ocean. I mean, it's not, my hair is not that orange, but you need red to make orange. And then with the waxing aspect, a little white. Follow the little bobber, cherubim. You go right ahead. She not paying attention to you. No, she not. But, you're going to be caught in that web, pun intended, with the internet, right? And or the little netting that I was balancing. I'm going to go swimming right now. I'm going to go swimming. Just saying.
But yeah, and in reference to my Medal of Honor art project, there's military in every state, there's Medal of Honor recipients in every state, and Congressional Medal of Honor awarded by the President of the United States of America. I don't know. I kind of have this little weird feeling that maybe, it being called the Congressional Medal of Honor. I mean, I call it my Medal of Honor art project for sure, and not to denounce the Congress or the president, just, but in the long name aspect, funny about the Church of Jesus Christ, Angel Moroni's Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, founded by Reverend Joseph Smith, being shortened to, the Mormons, and so not making fun of them, just in that proverbial metaphor aspect, Congress has to get the approval in certain regards after going through the chain of command of the military, the different branches, to get the Medal of Honor considered for the recipient, and so on and so forth, and that obviously includes Senate, and so before it goes to the president, and obviously it gotta go to the vice president before it goes to the president of the United States of America, so I'm not making fun of in regards to the process of that, just, I'm laughing at the cherubim aspect of the, oh, that's pretty arrogant of you to be like, And then there was this guy, to close things out, there was this guy I wound up meeting at the club in Washington State, which had Homeland Security in the business center, who wound up going and getting a law degree or something like that. I met him a couple times there, and he asked me a bunch of questions that I can't remember what he asked me. But I know that he was talking later on about how he was getting a law degree, and how, what was it? He said something about something with someone and an investigation, and he knew, or something like that. It'd be kind of weird if there was some sort of coinky-dink connection to that and that whole thing. But yeah, it'd just be like, well, the only time that I put in paperwork
in regards to any sort of stuff was the IRS aspect from the office in Vancouver, Washington, of the Crystal Creek apartment complex. I sent the facts from the office in regards to the IRS thing. But if there was some stuff going on beforehand, and obviously I didn't know about the hacking or the stalking thing until like 2018 in like November. If I was blamed for a whole bunch of stuff and didn't know, and then those little 3 points and tetherings and connections, and I had no idea, but they were all doing that stuff, and I'm just do. Yeah, that was stuff for the chairman, that's for certain. But if those individual groups, like, you know, in regards to my ex-in-laws, the reference point I gave as far as my children, and then as far as my biological family, the reference points of sending the books and stuff like that, and then in reference to Cagden Jack and Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., you know, that 151 road during the Fiesta thing with Mad Max and the Alamo Draft House, and then the irony of there's that Black Mirror thing, and there's that there was that one episode that I saw with San Jacinto, and then the other episode of the female that kind of looks like the female that Cactus Jack had sent me a picture of him dating, and then kind of the male and is in November 208 but shorter in that particular episode.
With like, yeah, that whole thing.
In that regard, and then whatchamacallit, and then as far as like if Matrix Renee and Jason, or Renee's bitch is what he went by on FetLife with, that whole thing of like them not paying attention to the stuff going on in Club Femme with Patrick Kennedy and Philip Olmsted, and them doing that sort of stuff, wanting to do the power couple aspect, and you know, meeting Patrick Kennedy through Philip Olmsted or Donnie Darko, whatever, on FetLife. If they, and again, in prior videos I've discussed the point with Philip Olmsted laughing the night that Matrix Renee's mom showed up to her house. And it was one of those, it didn't click back then, because I'm dealing with a little bit of stuff, a lot. But doing what I could to like help where I could, the irony, if that whole connection point and stuff like that. So like if Matrix Renee and Jason, because there was a point in time in 2012, and they had all been informed of the different threats that I had been receiving up until that point, and well after, but nonetheless, at that point, I mean, it stopped after I got offline, but not why. There was only one other time that it stopped, and that was when I was with my ex, well, the guy who I was engaged to at the time. And so,
before the ex, as of the other stuff, that whole thing.
But if like they all knew about the threats, it's not like I didn't talk about it. But if Titty Baby Philly or Philip Olmsted, if they didn't, because I told Club Femme females that I met Patrick Kennedy or Alpha Gen X on FetLife through Philip Olmsted or Donnie Darko or Darko on FetLife, who wanted to do the power couple, and both of them had wanted to do the power couple thing. I was like, no, I'm not interested in that. Not with you. If I were to do a power couple thing, like, definitely not there. That is not where I'd want to do a power couple thing. Not at all, because that doesn't benefit in a better way.
I mean, if you're going to do a power couple thing, I mean, if that's what you're good at, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But
if I want to be in like that proverbial power couple thing, number one, I actually want to be with the person. That's first and foremost. And then second, if I were to do the power couple thing, it would have to be something where I was helping. It wouldn't be, and again, no offense towards any of those professions and stuff like that, but it would, if I were to do a power couple aspect thing, it would have to be where I helped instead of the different aspects of causing harm in that regard, because I'm not into extortion or any of that sort of stuff, because I could very easily see certain aspects of that going that route. Not into that.
And the irony of not wanting to get involved in politics when I joined the army.
Because I guess technically that would mean that, right? I think that's what that would mean by technicalities. Ugh, irony of ironies. Irony. But yeah, so there's that. And so there's that whole thing connected all in the roundabout sort of way. So listening to that deposition, I think is what it's called, for that FOIA FISA thing of above that was like 3.5 hours long. It was like, well, yeah. Irony. So you guys have a happy Easter. That's what I got.